Hi there. Actress Tamzin Merchant has finally broken her decade-long silence on being replaced in the role of Daenerys Targaryen with Emilia Clarke after the failed unaired Game of Thrones pilot. Now, she didn't give a full explanation, but she hasn't said a word on this in 10 years. And what little she did say offered some tantalizing clues. In this interview with Entertainment Weekly, she just for a paragraph said, quote, "Shooting that pilot was a really great lesson. It was an affirmation about listening to my instincts and following them, because I tried to back out of that situation, and during the contract process, I did back out. I was talked back into it by some persuasive people. And then I found myself naked and afraid in Morocco, shooting the wedding night scene, and riding a horse that was clearly much more excited to be there than I was." Now, put this in the context of James Hibberd put out this big new book of Game of Thrones interviews a few weeks ago. I'm still going through all of it because there's a lot of information, and it's going to be a big video series on my channel. But I have to do prequel news updates first, so about a month from now, I'm really going to get into this, because they have this total lack of self-awareness that they don't realize they're saying incriminating things in this. I mean, the people printing it, Hibberd himself, thinks this is praising them and not that this is awful, which is how the reviewers have been reacting to it. And one of the major parts of this is how the pilot was falling apart. Like a lot of you, I got totally duped in the early seasons of the show, where they often deflect criticism of their own failures by playing it off as a joke that, that sure was funny, wasn't it? And they're not owning the mistake. They're acting like that was just a funny thing that happened. That they only told us half of the truth, that the pilot was a failure, and they just kept saying it was bad, it was awful, but not really specifics. And we thought it was just because, it's hard to visually realize any fantasy series from book to screen, like Lord of the Rings, The Witcher, Wheel of Time, that they got the tone wrong or something. Only recently did we realize it's because it was the world's most expensive film school and would remain the world's most expensive film school through the next 8 seasons. All this stuff that after the finale, people finally paid attention to what Benioff and Weiss have been joking about for years openly, that we don't know what we're doing, we're unqualified, we're con men who faked our way into this job. That Benioff is just this dilettante millionaire's son, and basically the pilot was Fire Festival, the Fire Festival of TV pilots, that everything was falling apart around them. That they say at Austin Film Fest, we didn't know how to do basic logistical tasks of coordinating a TV production, like coordinating a music festival, like the Fire thing, like we didn't know how any of the departments interrelated. We didn't even know that the costume department needed more than one person in it. And people had to walk us through and explain all this, and they didn't really pay attention anyway. And then they insisted on micromanaging everything because they're control freaks. So even though they could have delegated these tasks to directors, they refused. And these are people who have no training in anything, because Benioff is an utter narcissist. With no experience making a television show, and not artistic, the story stuff, basic logistics, they didn't know what they were doing, and it just fell apart. And had they told us that from the beginning, we would have seen what they really were. Instead, they played off the failure of the pilot as, these things happen. It doesn't just happen. And it is amazing to me how well they were able to sweep that under the rug. And on top of the logistics stuff, you have technical skills needed to tell the story, like screenwriting, that they've said, we forgot to say in dialogue that Jaime and Cersei are brother and sister. What they mean specifically is they mention it in the script notes. I've talked about this in other videos. And their scripts read like novels, with these jokes to the actors, these detailed paragraph-long descriptions of the actors' mental states, that they say, well, the actors can act with their eyes. They don't need dialogue. They can just act with their faces, because they're bad at writing dialogue. So they don't know how screenwriting works. And another big aspect is they don't know how cinematography works. Basically, the pilot looked like Season 8. They would film scenes at night under natural lighting, which means you couldn't see anything. On really expensive sets they built, or outdoor locations in Morocco for the Daenerys wedding. It just, on top of that, because of the obsession with the faces, these performances, these faces is the meme we have from all my other behind-the-scenes videos. There's this part in the Hibbard's book where they just make an aside. There weren't any wide shots in the entire pilot. It's just a bunch of close-ups of the lead actor faces over and over again in dark lighting. Which brings me back to Tamsen Merchant, that there were basically two parts to the pilot. The Winterfell stuff and the Pentos stuff with the Daenerys Drogo wedding. So there's these two feast scenes, right? And a few setup scenes. The King's Landing stuff, the little they had in the first episode of Season 1, that came later. That was a thing they had to refilm. Night's Watch isn't in Episode 1 other than some guys in the woods. So in terms of sets and locations, it's Winterfell and Pentos. The Winterfell feast was filmed in Northern Ireland, working out of their main production hub in Belfast. And all the cast and crew who worked on it still say it was a mess. That nothing was coordinated. Wait, where's all the lighting for this? We don't know how all these things move together. Wait, where's the shipping containers for this? Where are the costumers? That it was falling apart on the Winterfell shoot, which was right near their production hub, and is a relatively contained indoor feast scene. The Dany wedding feast scene with Tamzin Merchant, the original one, was filmed in Morocco. So it had the added difficulties of being an overseas shoot. People who didn't know how to manage things working out of a 30-minute drive from their production hub in Belfast, who didn't know, by their own admission, how to coordinate the different costuming subdepartments, assuredly did not know the complex bureaucracy and logistical management of getting everything they needed to the Morocco shoot. This isn't like even moving between Belfast and London. This is Northern Ireland to Morocco and back. And yes, there is a film industry there, and I don't think there would be that much of a language barrier. It probably didn't help, because they film other things there. They could have interpreters, but just the fact that it's that far away. They have no coordination skills, even in Belfast, that of these two halves of the show, given what we know now, Morocco was assuredly, it got the worst. That any problems at Winterfell shoot were exacerbated at that. And a handful of scenes from the Winterfell parts survived into the first episode, like 5 minutes. Ned and Robert in the crypts, or a prominent one was when Tyrion is with the prostitute Roz. That's pretty much from the original pilot, they said. And you can tell when you pay attention going through it, it's nothing but close-ups in this scene. Why did they decorate the whole room? But the Morocco shoot, we've never seen a single frame of. And it was that bad. And you also consider not just the logistics were bad, the lighting issues were also at play again, and 10 times worse. That Winterfell, it's an interior feast hall with a lot of candles. There's chandeliers. That, it's like a Barry Lyndon Kubrick thing, but even under natural lighting, with that many candles, it's a reasonably well-lit by candlelight feast hall, a roaring fireplace, compared to an open-air festival, essentially, backlit by a handful of bonfires. And with a bunch of tight close-ups, so you can't even get a sense of, we built this whole this encampment for the Dothraki, this whole set for Pentos. The head of HBO says in the book, the money officially went to waste. You didn't even use wide shots to show the sets you built. It could have been made in a backlot. So I don't know if Tamzin Merchant even saw the finished footage, or at least realized why. She's an experienced actress. She was in the Tudors. Why are we filming this in pitch blackness at night outside? You don't have to be behind the camera lens to know it's not going to pick this up. She's worked in TV before. Maybe what horrified her was just the logistical mess, which, if you think about it, is my point. Morocco was probably an even worse logistical mess than Northern Ireland. They had to reshoot all of this when they recast Daenerys, so the final version in season 1 that you see with Emilia Clarke, that was filmed in Malta. This is the Morocco shoot. So what did we actually pick up from this new piece of information from Tamzin Merchant? Well, she had a miserable time filming on the pilot. Who didn't, you know? But it's what really jumped out at me was that part where she says, even going into it before they started filming as an experienced actress, she was getting a bad feeling about this. Like some of the other actors who were just, child actors or young people like Emilia Clarke, Kit Harington, who hadn't done much high profile stuff, they might not have been as experienced enough to pick up on Benioff and Weiss don't really seem to have coordinated this very well. That she saw them at their worst during the pilot and really would not wanted to have stayed on the ground. And even before they started filming, she actively tried to get out of her contract to leave the show. And she says it's not because, fantasy, it's I got a bad feeling. And she emphasizes persuasive people got her into staying through it. Not just, they changed my mind, or Martin really talked me through it to at least give the pilot a shot. That sounds like throwing shade at Benioff and Weiss or con men who smooth talked me through my fears, even though I was getting a bad feeling from them. That's the one thing, talk about all my other videos, that we've seen a lot. Benioff is a smooth talker. He is good at faking his way through interviews, even though he's reciting just catchphrases and gibberish and old jokes. He's mastered the stupid art of talking in a warm and calm, even voice about topics he has no idea what he's saying. He's an idiot, but he's just really fun to be with, and a lot of people have said this independently, just how confident he was that this is going to be the next Lord of the Rings, this is going to be the next Sopranos. Even like Kim Renfro and other major news sites who went back and looked at like their pilot pitch were shocked at, this guy has never made television before, and he's acting like it's going to be amazing. I have vision for this. It's because he doesn't know any better. And he believes his own hype as an utter narcissist. You kind of get sucked into his world of, I am amazing. And because he believes it wholeheartedly, you kind of get sucked in too, because, well, why would so many people be here unless Benioff truly knows what he's doing? Tamzin Merchant got a bad feeling about it even before she went in, that they're laying the charm on really heavy here, and they don't have a big background in TV. And when she was actually there filming, more so than the people at the Winterfell set, she saw Benioff at his worst and realized just how much of he's a liar. How much of a smooth talker he was. I mean, you've seen like Fire Festival documentary clips of Billy McFarland can be really fun and charming, and then you intercut that with scenes of this chaotic festival hellscape at night where no one knows what they're doing. And what's to say, God give me the confidence of a rich white man's son. That just, he really thinks he's amazing and everything. I talk about this in other videos, that he is just this total entitled trust fund kid. And she saw more than most what this project was turning into. And you consider, of the people who left after the pilot, well, the original Catelyn Stark actress left, but that's because she had a baby, and we're pretty sure that's why. That of like the 5 speaking roles at the Daenerys wedding, at the Morocco shoot, 2 of them left. That there was Tamzin as Daenerys and prominent British actor Ian McNeice as Illyrio. And yeah, he's got a busy schedule, but for like a 1-episode guest spot that wouldn't really recur that much, I think he also, as an experienced actor, must have realized it's time to get the hell out while I still can. So, what I wouldn't give to get an honest answer from him and from Tamzin about what specifically did you think of their ability to lead this show. So this leads to more questions than answers, but in context, Morocco was the worst of the 2 shoots. It would have been obvious from it what Benioff was. And Tamzin admitting here, I had a bad feeling before we even started filming and tried to get out of my contract. She alludes to the fact that Benioff is this smooth-talking, just manipulative person. And I think there's three possibilities. Because what they say in the book is, oh, her performance just didn't gel well. Possibility one is, yes, sometimes that just plain happens, that they just don't like this actor, just isn't a fit for the role. I really think that is a possibility. Possibility two is she was so freaked out by how incompetent the Fire Festival-like Morocco shoot was, where there's like horses running all over the place, they're filming at night, that it affected her performance so much that she couldn't give a very good one and just wasn't feeling it. That the incompetence and nightmare production surrounding her was just too much for her to work her craft. That's the second possibility. Third possibility, which I would not put outside the realm of possibility, is that she intentionally flubbed her performance after the first couple of days of filming. Because this is someone who had, under not duress, but under resistance, been talked back into the contract after trying to leave it before a frame was filmed. When she got to Morocco, it was this blatant nightmare production by an incompetent buffoon. Do you really think she would have put her heart's performance into trying to be in this and get locked in for a year or two on this crazy show that'll probably get canceled? Or did she just give a perfunctory performance of, give me my paycheck, I can tell you people are failures, I'm not going to throw my heart into it, nor should she have. That this is not what you promised me, you really don't know what you're doing. And there's some overlap between these three things of just she was probably rattled by it, but I don't think that the dystopian apocalyptic Morocco shoot at night with these fires you can barely see by would have encouraged her to give the performance of her career. And it's just one more piece falling in with all the other context we've seen that some people knew this was a disaster from the beginning, particularly the HBO leadership. And I really hope that as time passes, Tamzin Merchant can open up even more about, I was specifically freaked out by what they were doing. And we've seen this is bigger than me. I'm not talking about Me Too movement stuff in the sense of sexual stuff, or just Ray Fisher with Cyborg and the Snyder Cut. You do not come out and say this director is an idiot. You get blacklisted. So I don't blame her that maybe this short paragraph is the most she can ever say about it without getting in trouble for her career, you know? Maybe even this paragraph that I had a bad feeling about it and I tried to get out of the contract before we even started filming, this might even get her in trouble because these are vindictive people. I don't know. But this fits with what we saw, that people could tell what Benioff was before they even finished the pilot. And everything wasn't just, ha, we're having a happy experience. You know, it's one of those things I chose to leave. It's she got out when she could. I'll be expanding on this more in coming weeks when I get through the big book of interviews that they stupidly admit all this self-incriminating stuff that was happening during the pilot shoot.